You're here, which means that you've found Spirit Crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Hello, and welcome to another Cosmic Energy Report. I'm Andrea from Spirit Crumbs and Concrete and Crystals.
And I'm Emily from Emily and Her Stars and Things That Make You Go Woo.
We are so excited to be back again. I feel like Leo season brought every element, I think. I felt a little bit of air. I felt some communication things, a lot of overthinking. I feel like I had some tangible things come through, had some emotions come up. The only thing that I think I didn't feel a lot was actually the fire, which is just sort of coming around now, like the creativity, the energy to do something with that creativity. What about you?
I feel like Leo's season hit with, for me, the intensity of creativity and busting out of the norm and really going full speed in a new direction. It was a bright breath of fresh air for me when it hit. And now, with, I think, particularly Mercury and retrograde and some of the other influences we have going on, Andrea and I were talking off air about it feeling like a little bit of a pinch right now. And I think that is exactly where I'm at the moment in the pinch. But it has been, I think, a beautiful Leo season. And like we talked about, maybe more emotional than some of the past Leo seasons.
Yeah, I think when we were talking last session, when we were talking about Leo season, I was feeling a lot of that combination of the fire and water. I did see that being really prevalent. And I think that is what came through for a lot of people. It was a lot of emotional processing, some relationship issues, and then also some fun things like some breakthroughs and some movement in those areas. But I can feel in the creativity that like it's in my energy. And I always have to remind myself that I'm an earth sign, so I always measure things and like what I'm tangibly getting done. But my process, the entire time I've been doing art, the biggest part of it is just in my energy processing things, taking it all in, taking in the inspiration. And the actual doing is a very short window. It's like a burst where I just do it all. So I have to remind myself that this energy of feeling inspired and seeing things that inspire me actually is part of the process. So I think now that I think about it, I have had a little bit more of that influence than I thought.
We're really lucky with Leo season this year too. Last year we had Venus in retrograde during Leo, and I feel like it held us back from fully experiencing this sort of unbridled creativity. And to me, it really feels this year like I think we were talking about how you pulled the chariot and this feeling of like being pulled forward and maybe in too many directions, having too many creative ideas, which I have notebooks that could prove that at the moment. But I've also had this experience suddenly with fairy energy, which has not ever really resonated with me. Not that I was against them, they just weren't part of my magic. And all of a sudden, in the last 6 weeks, I've had so many synchronicities and confirmations with this new fairy energy coming in. So I'm excited to work with that and just continue to find more and more ways to be we always say cautiously optimistic, but it is in a beautifully creative way. I think for the first time, there is hope attached to this creativity.
I agree. I think we have finally come full circle with that star energy, that hope energy, that there is something better on the horizon. And I think we are kind of on that horizon. The horizon has actually come up as an essence in the last few months of knowing that either your ship is coming in or you're out on the ship and you're starting to see the shore coming. And as Emily had mentioned earlier, I was explaining that because it's an 8 year, one of the energies I was feeling is because it's kind of a karmic year and it's setting you up for the 9 and the new cycle, wrapping up loose ends, making big changes. It feels like there's two distinct parts to this year that we could feel. And the first part of the year, if you think of the 8 as like the two circles, was kind of wrapping up the old cycle. And the pinch she was talking about is like that where the two circles meet, where we're not quite fully letting ourselves go into the new loop yet. We're kind of stuck in between. And I do feel like a lot of us are getting this inspiration and the creativity so that we can finally move into that new circle. And like I've been to a few art markets, I've talked to a lot of artists in the last few days, and I feel like that energy is starting to push me into that new circle. And it's just like we've been saying too, you don't know when the one thing that you do is going to be the thing that moves you onto that new path. So I think having that trust and that excitement that Leo season brings and just being curious about like what doors it might open if you do say yes to things that you're excited about or say yes to an invitation that feels really exciting or if there's an event that catches your eye. I think that openness is something we haven't had in a while. I think a lot of us have been skeptical and wanting to keep to ourselves and not really trusting that there can be connections that are positive. So I think that's kind of my sign that we're kind of getting to the other circle finally, like the part of the 8 year where we actually start to see the reward part of it, not so much the karma. That's what we have to keep in mind is that 8 is a karma year. So there's a lot being cleared, but then there's a lot of rewards and abundance on the other side. And that's what we have to look forward to in this other half of the 8.
We talk so much about Uranus in Taurus affecting economy and prices of things and how and where we're spending our money. But the other part of it that is such an exciting aspect that I think has been tampered quite significantly, we haven't had time to explore it, is the fact that Uranus and Taurus is art and creativity and really busting out of some of those routines. And when it originally entered the sign 2 years ago, I did a podcast episode about how the last time that had happened, we had this beautiful art kind of revolution. And I think that now that we're ending some of this Capricorn energy, we have, like you said, tied up so many of these loose ends. It's an opportunity for us to finally lean into and heal through arts again. And so the fact that I know, in behind the scenes are working in new ways and looking for new experiences. And I think so many of us are feeling like we're just one step away from things shifting, one connection away. Just everything is really close and on the precipice. We just haven't pushed over the top of the hill yet, so to speak. And I love the reminder of the karma because that really feels so in alignment with how we've cleared out the first half of the year. We are closer now to the second half, the second set of eclipses. And that's going to be ushering in new energy as we bring in Pisces. So we're going to talk about that. And yeah, over everything, I would have to say there's more optimism and abundance coming than I think we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. And I feel like the influence of Virgo coming in now, I can feel it's close. You get that bouquets of sharpened pencils, like in You've Got Mail, that sort of back to school. Let's make our lists. Let's write down our intentions. And it's like, okay, we have these dreams. We have all the creativity. Like Emily said, we have maybe too many ideas. Let's get them on paper and start to feel into which ones are going to be productive and like what we need to do to get moving forward on them. Even though I'm an earth sign, I feel like I try to hang on to the other energies and not give into Virgo so easily. But I think I'm ready for it this year. Seeing the tangible things happening is keeping me moving forward and doing the work because otherwise I think we'd just be floating off in a bubble at this point.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And poor Virgo, I think in terms of all the earth signs being the only mutable earth sign and ruled by Mercury, it's always looking to break down information in order to make the most aligned change. And it can be hard sometimes, I think, for the other earth signs, Taurus, Capricorn represent in the house, to understand that that change is needed. And Virgo comes along at the time of the year. We're at the end of summer. We haven't yet reached harvest, technically. So when we're looking at how ancient systems were built on the light and astrology was built on where the light falls in the sky, it has to do with this idea that we know judgment is coming. Libra and the idea of black and white, good and bad, yes, no. That is coming. And we can't sort of fib our way through what's reality. Like Leo likes to blow everything up and it's creative and let's have fun. And oh, sure, there's enough. It'll be fine. There'll be enough. And Virgo's like, but is there really? Let's really take a look at it. And let's say the thing that no one else in the room is willing to say. They're also incredibly funny because they are so observant, always looking at the entire situation and not afraid to call people out. There's being ruled by Mercury is equally as witty as Gemini and can really banter back and forth and give you that hilarious combination. I also think that for those of us that want to embrace this energy and not feel like poor Virgo is the one that tells us we have to color code our files and you have to organize your closet and all of those things, yes, but it's also where can we make those micro adjustments, those micro mindset adjustments that suddenly bring in the freedom and flexibility that makes your life better. That's what Virgo is really hoping for is like, let's make more room for the fun, for the abundance. It's not because they are obsessed with color coordination.
Totally. And I think too, like, I really feel this year the influence of it being the sixth house and like those routines and the everyday thing and like the small things, which is why I think I'm leaning into that so much this year is like, I realized for myself, having the to-do list, having the stuff organized does give me that freedom where I look and I'm like, oh, I actually have some time. I can do something because I was keeping track. When you're not keeping track, it always feels like there's more to do and it's overwhelming. And I think I've been leaning into that sixth house stuff. We have a couple of six cards that came up this month too. So I do feel like that's kind of a hint. And we were talking about this in the Inviting Shadow episode, how setting yourself up and getting your routines and everything in order now through September is actually going to really give you the edge come the rest of the year when everyone else is kind of doggy paddling and trying to pull all of their random scattered notes together to know how to manage the energy coming. Whereas if you already know, okay, I can afford to take a day for my mental health today because I know I'm on track, you're actually going to be feeling really good about yourself. And so that Virgo energy and that dedication to the details is actually really going to be something that does give you space for creativity. And I think the dedication to service is the other piece of Virgo that I'm really feeling. Like there's going to be a need, as we have said in that episode, if you haven't listened yet, to really see how you can be of service when there's big energies happening. You know, you have skills, you know, you have gifts that people want to receive. And if that is art, if that is something creative, you're going to want to be able to shine and help be one of the lights shining forward. And you're not going to be able to do that if you're one of the ones scattered and, you know, feeling overwhelmed by every wave of energy that's going to be coming in the next few months.
And we're right now in the middle of this Mercury retrograde. Started in Virgo, it's going to back into Leo, and then we're going to get that boost, that kick forward from Leo and Virgo again. So we have this exceptional amount of time where we can really take the time to assess where do I need to bring more joy, more play? What shifts can I make? And how is this, like you said, going to boost my participation and my ability to participate and find clarity and space the rest of the year? So, yeah, the idea of this pinch between the two eclipses and the eight of the karma of this year, I think is exactly the energy I'm feeling for this episode. And we're going to talk just a little bit about the first super full moon eclipse coming on the 18th of September. So just before we enter Libra season.
I feel actually very excited about the eclipses this fall because seeing what happened with the eclipses earlier this year, there was a lot of crazy energy at that time. But I almost feel like this energy of karma, of cleaning up and finally moving forward. Like, I feel like that's more what I'm feeling for this rest of the eclipses that we have this year. And I feel like that energy is actually going to be very positive for moving things forward. And of course, there's going to be intensity and everyone's going to feel it differently. But overall, I just feel like it's going to be like a sigh of relief when we get through it. And I think it's going to bring a lot of hope back for people going into the rest of fall.
We also have so many really beautiful trines surrounding this next eclipse that there's an immense amount of really harmonious energy coming to support it as well. I mean, yes, there's always a few crazy days, but there's some beautiful healing coming with this fall energy.
I am excited for it. I think I'll hop into the first week of Virgo. The first few days are actually in their own card here this week from August 22nd to the 24th. And what I pulled for that was the Three of Cups, which if you remember, we also had in Leo season. We have this energy returning. And I think the energy of retrograde is actually keeping us in this energy of moving back through what we just have gone through. And because the Three of Cups brings us with the people that are closest to us, it helps us celebrate ourselves and really have a moment to acknowledge how far we've come, to acknowledge each other, and to be in community. And I think there's this energy of seeing each other that I can see very clearly, where I can see a triangle of people. It's kind of like the Spider-Man, everyone pointing to each other, but in a positive way of like everyone sees the good in everyone else within like a small group. And the people that know you best really know those like hidden strengths that you have that you don't always see in yourself. And that's the energy that I'm really feeling going into the season, is like before we get fully into the next steps, try to have that bigger picture of who you want to be and what your qualities are that make you shine. Because if you get really into the details and start to nitpick a lot, you can tend to see where you're lacking. Whereas having somebody boost you up right before you get into that, you can remind yourself of like what those strengths are. And it's funny because when Emily was saying like how Virgos are so witty, there was this meme that I saw that really made me came right to my mind when you said that, because the meme is like a tweet, and it's be the elephant you wish to see in the room. But I think that's the energy that we almost need to have right now, where it's like, don't be afraid to be the one that is, being in your true Leo energy, bringing that in as well, like that crossover between the two. Still be that full version of yourself, even when you're in Virgo season. Bring all those positive qualities that people are pointing out in you, or that that you've started to really enjoy. Like if you're having so much fun being creative and, trying new things and, doing some art and communicating with people and all of that, don't take that away just because all of a sudden now you have a to-do list. You can still keep that energy. And I think that's why this is coming up again as a reminder, because we also had this in Leo season. But this is this reminder that like that is a routine. Getting together with friends and having conversations, keep that in your routine. Keep space for that, because you're going to need it moving forward.
I love that card for this week, and this little window of energy. It's really kind of quiet between the 22nd and the 26th. The 22nd is, of course, the day the sun shifts out of high volt Leo, right, and moves into the grounded, earthy space of Virgo. We're really being asked at this point to scale back, to prioritize, to bring efficiency back into our lives in some ways. And creativity is it's a powerful release, right? We feel that euphoric feeling when we step into those opportunities, but sometimes it leads to dead ends. And we have to kind of gather our supplies back up, put all the markers away, put the paints back in the box, and get back home, because that's the stability that allowed us to jump into that creativity in the first place. So it's the time of year where we're meant to embrace to school supplies, being structured, having those systems that support you so that when you take those creative tangents, you've got stability underneath you. Now, the one thing that happens on the 22nd, we have Venus and Mars squaring off. So this is your action. And then the one thing that brings you love and harmony. So of course, there's going to be frustration right out of the gate on the first day, where getting yourself unstuck is going to be kind of the name of the game. This energy motivates you to change your mind and look for some new solutions. And what's going to add to that sort of fiery frustration is the moon continuing. It will be waning at this point in Aries, but Aries wants you to push the limits, push the boundaries, push whether or not the rules really matter for that each person. And so you'll kind of have that kick back and forth of like, I want to do this, but also there's responsibility. So just be aware of that sort of roadblock. It's more of a speed bump. Don't think of it as a dead end.
I love that. And I think that's where having the community of support can be really helpful. If you're feeling really stuck, somebody might be able to point out some things that will get you unstuck. And I think that's a beautiful way to be navigating that energy. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of water energy. There's a lot of cups in this energy. And I feel like that could be some of the Libra energy. It could be a lot of things moving through. But in the 25th to 31st, we actually have the 10 of Cups, which I can't remember when that came up, but it came up fairly recently as well. It might have been Cancer season. And it's really highlighting that we can really fully feel into all of our desires and all of the things that fill us up emotionally. And I think too, like there's an energy at the end of the month where every year in August, I feel it where I'm almost feeling the energy of like Christmas time. Like in August, there's always a day when I get a latte and watch Elf and just fully let myself feel into that energy. And I almost feel like that's the energy of this, where it's like, just because, like, if your favorite time of year is Thanksgiving or the holidays, why not recreate that for yourself now and really lean into the abundance and that harvest feeling, even if it's a little bit early. This year, especially, it feels like people have been doing a lot of actual change and a lot of like inner work, and they've been working on relationships and so many things. And so, if your relationship is going really well, then like celebrate that and like make time for each other and really trust that like where you're going and this energy you're putting into things is moving you towards that 10 of cups. So again, as per usual, when a 10 comes up, I usually feel like it's saying, even if you're not fully there yet and you're still wondering if it's coming, it's a sign that, like, yes, you're getting very, very close to that emotional fulfillment. And I think before we had the 10 of Pentacles at the same time, and it was kind of saying like your external and internal are going to match and you're going to have everything. And it almost feels like that was a beacon. And this is now the point where it's like, okay, maybe the emotional is going to come before the financial and the abundance and all of that. But we had to believe that both were coming in order to really feel good about ourselves and not take out the financial frustrations on the people around us. It was like, okay, we trust that the abundance is coming so we can enjoy one another, but that creates an energy for abundance when you're feeling good in your day to day life. And I feel like that's what Spirit's really leading into. But this week is that sometimes you have to emotionally prepare for the abundance to come, because then when it comes, you distribute it and you use it in a way that you're not just impulsively doing things. You know what your intention is, you know your why, you know what you're building, you know what life you're trying to create. So then when this abundance starts to come through, you fully appreciate it because you can see where it's going to go. There's like this format for what you want to do and like how you're going to use it. Whereas sometimes if the abundance comes first, you get so wrapped up in what you want to do with it that you forget that part of that is creating community or supporting family, or even for yourself, creating a foundation for yourself that will last a long time. And all of those things we can kind of forget. I know for myself, I've been really looking at like, how do I want to feel in that energy? And like, what do I want to be surrounded with? And that is the energy that's like bringing in the abundance, but it's also directing Spirit to show you what the best path is to that abundance. Because if you had just taken the quickest path, and you didn't really know where it was leading you, you may not have been emotionally fulfilled at that point. But when you're doing both at the same time, you're like, yes, I want abundance, but I want to feel really excited and have it be something that's sustainable for me. And I think it seems cliche. We hear that all the time with like manifestation and stuff, but I think Spirit's really telling us like it is possible. And like any doubts you have, if you kind of resigned yourself to, maybe I'm not meant to have all these things, that's not an energy that you need to believe. You can still keep believing that it is for you. It's just that your path is going to be coming a different way and that you need to keep taking those steps forward because, like we said before, you never know what that one thing is that's going to get you there.
So much good energy. The amount of optimism that I think comes in right around here is good. We have a few loose ends that we're going to tie up ahead of that really beautiful eclipse that's coming in. The first thing we have is the last quarter moon. And at this point, the moon is slid into Gemini. So you could have feelings of balance and needing to sort of talk things out. Gemini is always about purging the ideas through getting others to either hold the space for you or for you to hold the space for them. Dissect, digest, discuss. All of these things will help people move through the energy. So be of service to someone else in the same way you would hope someone could do that for you. I think that's a really important reminder during Virgo season. And let the moonbeams of this information and this time period allow it to remind you that it's okay to change your mind and pivot. I think for so long we've been fighting for the things that we thought we wanted. And now that we've reassessed some of what's really important, we are recognizing it's okay to pivot slightly and go in that new direction. August 27th, this is going to find you opening up to options that you might have missed because part of today's alignment has to do with Venus in practical Virgo. So it's bringing us harmony through practical results. And Uranus, which is grounded in Taurus, also the home of Venus. So here, this alignment is in this harmonious trine, and it's encouraging you to be spontaneous, rebellious, and to shake things up in some way. Both planets and earth signs, the message here is about tangible, practical solutions that feel good. August 28th. Now, this whole day is sponsored by Whiplash, brought to you by Mercury in Leo, and it's winding up this retrograde. This is a moment for over the top drama, but it's going to start to fade. And the insurmountable mountains will finally begin to feel manageable again because we're going to backspin back out of Leo and into practical Virgo. However, on the 28th, we've got Venus in Virgo still, but it's going to today be opposite Neptune in Pisces. So this polarity, this pulling, is making it difficult to get your heart and your dream situation on the same page. So this is again where one day it feels like we can practically touch it, and then the next day it's like foggy and an illusion. So holding strong through this energy will help. Remember, the drama is going to start to fade, so don't make decisions based on this energy. We also have the moon diving into Cancer. This is going to keep those emotions running closer to the surface, but your intuition will be there too. Lean into that. On the 29th, that energy is again all about Venus. Venus is here this whole week. Peacemaking planet Venus is here seeking harmony in all things. And today it moves into its home sign of Libra. It loves being here. This is where Venus finds ways for everything to relate to everything. How can we find peace internally and externally? Trying to get everyone to agree to the same piece of artwork is beautiful. And Libra will help through Venus for you to find ways to become compatible and to offer a smooth and restless brain this opportunity of creating a peaceful environment. Don't overestimate the calming effects of beauty. Our spaces can be so supportive. Adding into today's magic will be a harmonious trine with Pluto. This is where you'll feel the need to level up on deep conversations because both of these planets are going to be in commutative air signs. The moon is still going to be in Cancer, so that your emotions are going to be running closer to the surface, but you're going to feel like it's okay to voice those feelings in some way. The 30th, we have a fairly calm day. I would only report on it because we have the new moon in Leo earlier in the month. And this time we have Mercury there as well, helping to amplify these lunar vibes. And if you find patterns repeating right now, make sure they're clearing things and not just recycling old habits. And then the 31st, we again have moon continuing in Leo, the sun in Virgo. This is that frustration when someone doesn't want to share the spotlight.
That was wrapping up August. And then September 1st to 7th is the next week on our chart here. And I had the Six of Cups. And that's interesting. Another Cups card, but it's a 6. And I do feel like this energy is coming through so strong. It's this energy of like nostalgia. And there's a really big focus on memories with this card. So this can be connection to like inner child. It can be connection to just your own past. But I do feel like what's coming up here is this energy of what's keeping you stuck might be you replaying things in your head and trying to piece together like what you could have done differently and all of these things. So there's an energy of forgiveness that comes with this as well. The 6 is a lot about balance and harmony. And I think that that is what comes when we actually finally kind of release those things. We're in the middle of the season here. So this can also be that like nitpicking energy of like, I know I could have done better than that. But there's this underlying theme of moving forward, taking that energy of the pieces. We talked about this in the more of the nostalgia sense before, but taking the pieces from that memory that were positive and then expanding on them moving forward. So you don't have to hold on to the fact that you didn't do it better then. you can just say, I'm now better at doing this. Like maybe now I'm better at communicating. So now going forward, I'm able to communicate better. Like focus on the skills that you gained from that or since then when those memories and things resurface, because there's this really potent energy where processing and forgiving yourself is actually something that's going to turn into a strength for you moving forward. And because this is a cups card, it's very much around the emotions. And so I think allowing yourself to move through the emotions that come up, if you're feeling sad, let yourself cry. If you feel like you need to have a discussion with someone to clear the energy, it almost feels like there's a bit of a Leo influence here where it's like, how can we take that creativity and the kid who loved to draw and really try to incorporate that into the everyday thing? This, again, I think really is leaning into the routines and the work structure and the way you go through your daily life. I don't give myself regular time for that. And I know that's what holds me back from moving forward in other things. And so it's this reminder that, like, those memories that are coming up, and if you're thinking about things you used to do that you enjoyed, or if you're thinking of things that you wish you had done, try to just make sure that you create that into your new life going forward and really consider it a way to create more balance and harmony for yourself. And that'll actually pay off in how you're able to serve others as well when you're feeling like all of your needs are met.
Okay, we've got a full week here. So we're going to hit it off first thing on September 1st with Uranus, and it's literally hitting the brakes for its annual 5-month retrograde starting today. So if you've been paying attention to where Uranus has been for a while, we've talked about it in this episode, it's still hanging out in Taurus. It's been here, it's beating a dead horse. We're talking about finances, the environment, these sorts of things. Watch out if you've had a relaxed attitude about your bank balance, or if you've kind of been lackadaisical and let things go in those terms, because now you're going to have time to review exactly what means the most. There's not going to be a lot of maybe forward moving momentum, or even if there is, how are you going to put it to use when it does start to show up? This could also be a really golden time for small businesses that don't follow traditional plans, because Uranus is the rebellion, it's the change. So we've had some corporations and things shifting, particularly under this final few months of Capricorn. So now's your time to shine. Pluto, who's already doing the retrograde shuffle, pops back into corporate Capricorn on the same day, for this is its last hurrah. We're going to see a tightening grip on government, on big businesses, and the economy until November 19th. But the thing about it is we won't see this energy again in our lifetime. So let's wrap up the lessons that kicked off in 2008. Really spend time reflecting about where you've come from. Is there something that has been an overlying theme or pattern for you? And get really proactive about the future that you want. The moon on the 1st is going to sashay into Virgo late at night, and you're going to wake up tomorrow ready to roll up your sleeves and take on the assignment. September 2nd, we have new moon in Virgo late at night, 9:56 p.m. It's got a mission for all of us. The new moon in Virgo is going to ask you to sprinkle some kindness into someone's day. Virgo is the zodiac's mentor. It's nudging us all to share a piece of wisdom or two with a friend or a stranger. It's like having a chat with your past self. Mercury is still in Leo, and it's going to be in a supportive trine with Chiron in Aries today. And this is going to help you see those patterns and offer the breakthroughs. And while you're at it, why not use that Virgo moon energy to declutter a little? A little autumn sprucing can help not only boost endorphins and energy in terms of your space, but it helps you to welcome in the new season. So I encourage you to do that. The 3rd and the 4th are going to be fueled by Mars and Gemini, locked in a powerful fight with Neptune and Pisces. This is air versus water. And it's going to have us in this feeling of jumping to conclusions without having all of the information. Mars is in a hurry to get to it, to move on. And Neptune makes everyone a little more likely to fall for smoke and mirrors instead of the fact. The much better time for coming up with ideas than executing them. And particularly during this energy, And while we're still in, even though Mercury's out of retrograde, we're in that shadow. I recommend don't take any shortcuts and give others the benefit of the doubt when mistakes happen, because they will happen. But just be kind to one another. Venus is going to join up with the South Node in Libra in opposition to the North Node in Aries. This is going to encourage you to look at the past with those rosy colored glasses. Just like Andrea was saying, it's that exact energy. Let your boundaries down because you may have heavily fortified them when thinking about the past. Like, I'm never going to let that happen again. I'm going to stand my ground. And instead, it's better to soften that, but don't allow yourself to be a people pleaser or to, like we said, to fall into those patterns. On the 4th, Mars is again at it. This time it heads into Cancer until November 3rd. So for the next 2 months, we're on an emotional roller coaster. Our plans are changing as often as the weather and our moods. We're chasing our dreams like ice cream trucks, but we're not sprinting after them. We're hoping that the ice cream truck delivers directly to our couch. We're not picking fights, but we're ready to defend ourselves at a moment's notice. This energy of Mars in Cancer is really time for you to dig out your mood ring, because we're going to be at the mercy of our moods. Everyone, like teenagers again. Let yourself see things from others' point of view. The moon is going to be in Libra a little bit. We have Libra season coming. I mean, we're still in the middle of Virgo, so I say that with a grain of salt, but we will have some planets moving into that energy. Be kind to one another. And then on September 7th, the last little piece this week, some more distractions. So Mercury in Leo, you're juggling this whirlwind of plans and conversations, but then Uranus is going to jump in and kind of amplify this chaos. This tension might stir up anxiety or make you feel like you're ready to jump out of your skin. When we have a square with Uranus, sometimes it does that. It's this electric, buzzy feeling. Sometimes we talk about earthquakes and things like that happening. It's just a feeling of being paranoid or off. Things are just kind of weird. So hang in there with that energy on the 7th. On the other hand, it could help you break through or see a rut or a new liberating approach in some way. And then with the moon in Scorpio, you're going to want to dig in a little deeper. You'll be willing to push past those blocks in some way.
All of that energy feels like it plays out really well into the card I pulled for the next week, which is September 8th to the 14th. And I feel like this energy should be familiar to you because I pulled the Chariot again. So it's a 7. So we're going from a 6 to a 7, which means forward movement. And I think because this is a major arcana showing up again, it's a very significant energy. And I also feel like this is exactly what Emily was saying, chasing the ice cream truck, but hoping it comes towards us, like we're not physically chasing. And because this came up before, I think that was the energy where we had to start doing the things and moving. But now that we have been, making our list, checking it off, we've been moving forward. Now's the time when like the horses are actually moving forward. It's so funny. I've never felt this energy like this before. But before I've always felt like it's the person trying to like coax the horses to go. But now you can just sit there. That's the point of having the horses, is that the horses are carrying you. And so that's what I'm feeling is like all of the energies and the things you put energy into, the streams of income, the relationships, the projects, all of the things that you've already put energy into are now taking off. And so you're still going to be working. You're not going to be, just sleeping and hoping for the best. You're still going to be working towards it, but it's not going to be as like physically draining or mentally draining for you. It's going to be more just about making sure things are on track and doing your part and continuing to do things the way that you're meant to be doing them. And I'm really feeling like it will take a bit of effort to keep yourself on track. But I do also think that it's going to open your eyes to other possibilities as well, because once these things seem to be moving well, then so for example, if it's relationships and family and stuff you've been putting a lot of energy into and wrangling the schedule and all of that, now maybe it's time for you to look at, okay, now that that's going and it doesn't need my energy as much, where am I going to put my energy next? And that's where you might be revisiting back to the things that you were really excited about when you had a million ideas in Leo season. and you couldn't do them all at once, maybe then one of those creative ideas can like come back into play and you can actually put some energy into something else. And I feel like this chariot card, every time it comes up, I always feel like you're putting multiple things, like you're bringing two, separate things together, but going in the same direction. And this is a really exciting time where all the foundational things are already going. And now it's time to add in the fun and the creativity and something that's just for you. It feels like you're not efforting as much. It's like things are coming to you and people are inviting you to things and you're feeling like you're just participating in the universe as a whole, as opposed to like you having to be this human on your own doing everything from scratch. It just feels like there's a lot more harmony and balance coming in. And I think that it's going to carry you through for a while.
I love when we get the chariot because I think the way you describe it each time, I pick up more and more nuances from what the card brings. And I love that you were getting the feeling of now we get to like let the horses do the work. We have really only 3 days this week that are bringing in any major energy, but they're kind of heavy hitters. So the first, September 8th, reality checker buzzkill. This is a once a year opposition between the Sun and Saturn. Only happens once a year. This time it's September 8th. And it might make you feel like a deflated balloon, like everyone just let the air out of all your dreams and hopes. But on the flip side, you could actually be applying more pressure to yourself than what is actually needed. So pay attention to where that criticism is coming from. Is it you saying the horses aren't going fast enough, or are you already winning the race and the horses are doing fantastic? This transit reminds us that less can be more and that scaling back, slowing down, getting on schedule is better going to serve you than burning that candle at both ends. Moon in Scorpio, and it's going to help you kind of lay it all out on the table with someone who can hopefully emotionally support you in some way through this. September 9th, making its way back through the retrograde shadow, Mercury re-enters Virgo today. At home in Virgo, you're going to find your mind then finally drawn back to tracking, planning, and in general, bringing order to that chaos that's kind of been infiltrating over the last few weeks. We've had that, I just want to have fun, but I have to do the thing, pulling at us from both directions. So now it's really going to feel like your actions and your mind are getting back in order with one another. This is a perfect 3 weeks while it's in this transit to implement or sustain a new habit, but keep it simple. It doesn't have to be like I'm going to completely change my whole life. It's okay that it's micro movements giving you the boost in the right direction. And then on the 12th, we have a square today between the Sun and Jupiter. This is kind of a grounding optimism, so to speak. With the Sun in Virgo, you want to get right to the facts. But Jupiter is expanding everything knowledge-based, communication-based. And in Gemini, there's going to be more information than you can possibly distill at once. The positive potential of this transit may actually coincide with the broadening of your awareness because Virgo is also ruled by Mercury like Gemini is. There's some compatibility there that allows you to see things from a different level, but make sure you're taking the time to dig deep and ask what you're really capable of creating. Because you may realize that your new goals go beyond intention setting and you might push yourself into those old habits of overdoing it. Be careful if any opportunities come up and you feel like you have to react to them immediately or that your reaction is maybe not in alignment with what your new hopes and patterns are. The waxing moon in Capricorn will help in some ways to help keep you level-headed, but pay attention to what emotions are coming up in this arena because you're going to have all sorts of things bubbling at the surface.
I feel like that really plays into this next week because from the 15th to the 22nd, which this feels like is taking us right through into Libra season, I pulled the lovers, which is a 6 again. So we go a 6 to a 7, back to a 6. So this focus on harmony and choices and balance is really coming through, but this feels like it has a deeper connection. So this could be an actual relationship. It could be a romantic connection, whether it's deepening one you already have or having one take form at this time. But I also feel like in terms of the way the lover shows up in terms of making decisions or making choices, it's one that is going to be either deeply fulfilling or it's going to have a really deep impact. And so not letting yourself get carried away with too many things and really starting to feel into the decisions that you're going to be making. Again, it was mostly cups this season. We had 3 cups cards and then we had 2 major arcana. And so having all of that emotional energy leading up to the chariot where we have things moving forward. And then again, making this choice of like what we want to do moving forward, what partnership we're leaning into, where we're putting our trust, where we're putting a lot of our energy. And I think the people and the partnerships that you choose really do shape how the future is going to turn out. And I think we're going into eclipse season. We're going into Libra, which is all about, that relational energy. I think there's a lot of balance that comes out of that. So this as our entrance into that season really does feel like the energy around using that Virgo energy of being able to use those Mercury skills to process and analyze what the pros and cons are before you get swept into that Libra, like Venus energy, getting into that rose colored glasses too far. I think there is an energy of like, is this good for me? Is this sustainable? It's back to that sustainability piece that showed up before and going into the lens on the other side of the chariot that we had that nostalgia energy and going through the memories and saying, okay, what are we going to move forward with? It does feel like there's a beautiful, beautiful energy that's coming with this that is allowing you to find a deeper layer of meaning in the relationships you do choose to move forward with and to trust yourself. I think that's one of the main things that's coming up here is that we don't want to lead into people pleasing, like Emily said, for this energy. This is all about like trusting yourself to make a choice that's good for you. Maybe in the past, you've always felt like you needed to ask a lot of other people their opinion before you made a choice. But feels like it's like a new understanding of yourself where you're able to make a choice that's solely like what is good for you. And if that means choosing another person or a partnership or an opportunity, then that's putting a deeper bond in that as well, where that other person is going to feel that energy. They're going to feel that trust. And that actually is going to make the relationship stronger because they're going to put in more energies into it as well. If they can feel that you're fully committed. Commitment is the word that's coming forward with this. And I think that's kind of a blend because it's the Virgo commitment to move all the way through it and do things that's the way you said you were going to, but it's the Libra more emotional Venus side of it, of like what that means to you, how that feels to have that relationship be really strong. So I'm really feeling like this is going to be our link between it because the 7, the chariot, is like the 7th house, which is the Libra house. So we're going back and forth between the 6 to the 7 to the 6. Like we're really feeling into these energies and how they play into each other. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see how the first week of Libra season turns out on the other side of this.
I love that you picked the Lover's card for this week because I don't know if there was maybe a better card in the entire tarot deck to describe it. And I'm going to talk a lot. So fair warning, because everything is happening like every single day this week. I'm going to just get into it. The first of our first 7 big days on the 15th, we have Venus in Libra. And it's to trine. So that's that beautiful harmonious energy. It's trining abundant Jupiter in Gemini. This is harmonious and auspicious angle that really at its heart, ironically at the heart, facilitates the opening of what we love, what we're going to foster in terms of connection and understanding between us. These 2 planets love of each other. And even though Jupiter isn't at home in Gemini, and it could cause people to like overshare or overstate or overpromise, it's important to keep your heart open during this transit and have those realistic expectations, right? This is that Libra openness tampered with just a little bit of Virgo that says, I'll believe it when I see it. Keep the heart open though. I think there's going to be some really amazing opportunities. The 16th, again, we're going to be bringing our emotions to the surface, Venus and Libra. Today, it's opposing Chiron and Aries. Well, this sets the stage for the eclipses that are coming in that are going to bring similar energy, but with different players. And remember what happened in the spring. this is that same energy. What did you learn about your relationships and boundaries over the last 6 months? With Venus in Libra, hopefully the idea is that you're more willing to look at the situation from another's point of view. But Chiron, we know, holds that deep wound. And with Chiron and Aries, which we've still got a few more years of this transiting energy, it's easy to make it all about yourself. We're relearning even how to relate to ourselves in some terms. And Chiron is going to hold that deep wound. And where the North Node wants us to look at this opportunity from others' points of view, where have you somehow stalled out? Where are you feeling like you're not making that progress and making it all about you? With Mars square the North Node, how are the things that aren't working out actually for your highest good? Take a step back, take that opportunity to pivot. And with the moon diving in Pisces on the 16th, we're setting up those eclipse vibes. So this is like all the players are on the stage, ready. We're not quite sure what the play is about, but we're in the audience and we're excited. And the thing about this eclipse is that this is the very first in a new Virgo-Pisces series that's going to last from 2024 to 2027. This is ushering in some newness as well. We're emphasizing the themes of work and health and boundaries. The last time we collectively experienced the eclipses in this Virgo-Pisces axis was during the March 2015 to February 2017 transit timeframe. So think back on that time period to what was coming up, what lessons, what major moves or something came up in your life during that time period, because we might be revisiting those. Okay, the 17th. This is the Pisces full supermoon partial eclipse. It is likely to be an emotional one. Pisces is receptive. It's got you picking up on everything and everyone around you to the point where you most likely will be overwhelmed. The heads up. This eclipse highlights the polarity between logic and intuition, routine and escapism, common sense, idealism. But we love Pisces because it's the visionary. It's always thinking about the big picture. It's pulling us forward, helping us dream into the future and remembering our connection to source. Virgo is the realist. It's rooted in the here and now. It thrives in dealing with the details of day-to-day life. What Virgo teaches Pisces is how to embrace the day-to-day and to create boundaries, while Pisces teaches Virgo to focus a little less on productivity and someone's flaws and a little bit more on how important it is to take a break of once in a while, focus on forgiveness and the value of relationships. How can you embrace emotional release and forgiveness during this eclipse? How are you going to let go of what no longer serves you and step into the next chapter with a lighter heart? Keep in mind, there's so much energy this week. This moon also squares Jupiter. So that's that contentious angle, and conjuncts Neptune. So amplifying it, creating the global need for a collective message of peace. It's a lot. Love and peace and harmony and hope is the underlying theme, but some people aren't willing to go there right away. The 18th, Saturn in Pisces opposes Mercury in Virgo. This is a fancy way of saying the rules you're going to want to, where you've got this prove it attitude, this skepticism. Pisces wants us to deal with our fears and those gut intuitions. This is a way of saying sometimes you have to take the leap. Even if you want it to be perfect and you want the proof before it happens, you sometimes can't find it until you take that first step. You might want to avoid feelings because everything is emotionally heightened right now. But are you stalling in some way? Is that keeping you from taking the next step? What you think versus what you say are going to be at odds. So give yourself and everyone else a little bit of grace. The 19th, we've got that stalled out energy that we're all kind of grappling with. This energy is finally going to break it up a little bit. It's like we've been treading water at the deep end of the pool for like 4 or 5 days now. And at this point, the sun in Uranus is in a harmonious trine, and they're going to help create this opportunity for confidence, new possibilities. If you've been waiting for a sign, this might be the day you get it. And Aries is going to have this undercurrent of fire starter to the energy, making it an opportunity for you to leap in some way, but leap accordingly. Like, don't burn the bridge, just swim towards the bridge. On the 20th, I described this energy as if you've ever lost a shoe in the mud. Like, you can't go backwards, you can't go forwards, you can't put your foot down. You're completely baffled as to what to do next. This is the energy coming in after the first eclipse. The sun in Virgo is opposing Neptune in Pisces. Your dreams are going to feel magnetizing, like, oh my God, I just want to run. The path is there. I'm so ready to go. And then all of a sudden, there's like these illusions and the true nature of things. And it's like these mists come in of unmet potential and what ifs. So just slow down, pull your shoe out of the mud. You might have to take your sock off, pivot slightly, but don't give up hope. The 21st, don't believe everything you hear. You might turn to the person to the left and they're like, oh, the mud is way worse over here. And you're like, how can it be any worse? I'm in up to my waist. Just take it with a grain of salt. We're likely to have information coming at you from every direction. That Jupiter in Gemini is just overloaded. And this planet today is in a square. Jupiter's in a square with Mercury. So everything will feel bigger, more blown out of proportion. Everyone's opinions will be bigger. Everyone's going to want to temper a little easier. Just don't overpromise. Don't overshare. Work on your own mud that day. And then finally, the 22nd, things move into Libra. So it's literally a sticky situation as you move out of Virgo. But I really believe the quicksand in the mud is for your own potential in some way.
I feel like that energy around like being stuck in like shoes stuck in the mud really feels like sometimes even you do it to yourself without intending to. Like you get so fixated on one certain aspect of something that you can't see that there's actually a pretty easy solution, or maybe you just don't have to do it, or maybe you just take your foot out of the shoe. Like sometimes you just don't know what the solution could be when you're so focused on one specific path, right? I feel like that also shows up a lot in relationships where it's like maybe you have to recognize that sometimes the other person's shoe is genuinely stuck in the mud, even though you may think that they're blowing things out of proportion, right? It's like maybe they genuinely can't do what you're trying to ask them to do, right? And I think there's a lot of energy that feels similar to how we're ending Leo season, just in a new form. Because when I was feeling into it, there's this energy of creatively feeling stuck and just wanting to move forward. And then this feels like it's with other people. Before we started recording, I forgot that I had written down what cards I had pulled for Leo season. And at the end of Leo season, we went from the Chariot into the Ace of Cups. So we went from the Chariot into like the beginning of a new partnership. And now at the end of Virgo season, we're having the Chariot into the Lover. So it's making a decision about that partnership or that relationship. So this like Mercury retrograde that's led into the season, I feel like has brought up a lot of things we can't ignore anymore. Like we've been overthinking it, and it's like almost like we had felt like our shoes stuck in the mud, and maybe it wasn't in the focus until now, but it's gotten to a point at this eclipse where you cannot ignore it, especially if you'd enjoy ignoring it. That shoes stuck in the mud, you have to make a choice of like how you're going to get out of that. So I really find that interesting that that energy of the eclipse has so much on either side of it. Like there's so many transits, you actually have to deal with stuff. It's different if it's on its own. It's like one day and then you just kind of move on. But when it carries on that strongly for like an entire week, it is making it so that you have to make those choices to move forward in a new way and have a fresh start, which is, I think, why I was so optimistic feeling into the energy. Like, even though we don't like being in the sticky energy, on the other side of it, whoever helps you get out of the mud, that bond is going to be stronger. And I think that even as a collective is going to show up as well.
I was just flipping ahead through the days looking forward because this intensity that's so focused around this first eclipse, right? Then we're in that portal, we're in that window where we're literally waiting for the next eclipse to close it, to finalize some of these things. And we've got this heightened amount of emotions and things that we're being forced to look at in new ways. And what's interesting, I think, is that Mercury is going to Kazemi again the 30th. So it's kind of this almost this pivotal point right between the two. And what a Kazemi is when Mercury passes or a planet passes, catches up to the sun, and they meet in this at the same point in the sky. And traditionally, ancient astrologers talked about it being like the burning off of the excess, the burning off of what we no longer need. And the symbology behind a Kazemi happening between the eclipses and how we're communicating with one another. At this point, it's still just busting out of Virgo, barely coming into Libra. And it's this rebirth of, okay, how are we going to move forward with one another in emotionally responsible ways that also continue to carry those boundaries and keep us excited? Like it's an opportunity, I think, for so many of us to pivot in ways that finally feel like we're making a change. We've been cautiously optimistic. We've been waiting for the external signs. I think we've had a few that have come along and said, okay, yeah, you can take a step. And we're like, I need a sign or sign. I'm just waiting a little bit longer. And this really, I think if you've been postponing too long, will be almost where the hand pushes you a little from behind. And suddenly you've stepped forward and you're like, I guess it's happening.
Yeah. And I feel like for me, anytime I've made a significant shift in my life, it's been an all at once sort of thing. And I think as much as we don't exactly love the energy of being pushed into something, sometimes that nudge is just what you need because once you're in the new energy, you're like, oh, you're right. This is better. It's like, oh, does feel like more like me. This does feel more like where I've been heading. It's just sometimes I think when we get so wrapped up in our minds of how we imagine things to be, that it becomes almost overwhelming because it's like, how do I get from my current reality to this giant thing that I've imagined in my head? And sometimes we don't see the clear pathway, the next step that could be it because so many things haven't been it. And it's like sometimes after a while, we get tired of just being disappointed. But I think this energy being that strong, if you really lean into it and you go into that energy, knowing what it is you do want, then when the next eclipse comes through, we're going to clear out all those doubts. We're going to clear out that sticky energy and we're just doing the thing. Even if we feel terrified and like we're, in a totally new territory, I think it's going to be for the best for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And we've talked, I think the first time I remember this coming up was last fall when we had a very fiery Scorpio water season. And I think, again, this is a very watery feeling earth season. As much as we want to feel as grounded and as much as Virgo usually brings us in terms of that, this time it's going to be less about the outward production of it, maybe, and more about making logical and practical solutions around your emotions. That we can sometimes let that horse run away, if you will, take the reins and go. And we're like, I'm still over here with the other horse and half of a cart, and I don't know what's happening. Bringing both of those parts of your world together so that you are fully supported, because none of us want to continue down this path of flip flopping and being uncertain. We're all emotionally exhausted. And I do really feel like there's some beautiful healing energy coming in. It just, it's going to come with an eclipse. So it's like ripping a band aid off. Yay. But it'll be worth it. I do think it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like when I saw all the cups coming out, I was like, oh, okay, we're in for a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but a productive one. Productive use of our emotions. Put them to good use. Listen to them. What are they telling us? What can we jot down in our journals? What can we learn from it? When I think of Virgo season, I don't usually think of the emotional aspect. I usually kind of do for other seasons, but I think both of the Mercury seasons, actually. I think Gemini and Virgo are similar, where I don't really think about the emotional impacts of them. The rest of the seasons, I know I have an emotional imprint, but those are the two that I just don't. And so the fact that that's pushing us to attach emotions to it, there's this energy around when you're making a plan or a to-do list, when you put the emotion with it of like, how am I going to feel when I complete that? It's almost like we say that in terms of manifestation and stuff, but we don't really put that together when we're doing it in the day to day. And I think that actually might be one of the outcomes of this season, which I think is a good thing. I don't know
It's
how I'm going to feel about it.
I've been creating the meme for us to promote this episode. One of my favorite projects that I do each month is making the little series. And at the end slide, I have a picture of Virgo and it says, does ugh count as an emotion? Because I feel that a lot.
Yeah,
And
I
I
love
truly
it.
think that is the imprint of this whole season, is bringing emotion to a place that hasn't had it in a while.
Absolutely. That like indifference, I think like that energy we are trying to clear out. It's like, I want to know how I feel about it. I don't want to just exist in the energy anymore. I want to know how I feel about it, why I feel that way, and what I can do with that information. And I think, yeah, that aspect of the Virgo, like Mercury energy, hopefully is going to be stronger this year. I do feel like this is going somewhere good. And I feel like going forward, I am going to be leaning into the Mercury aspect of my work, into like the written part of it and how I'm communicating things to people, because that's the feedback I've been getting from people. That Three of Cups energy, anytime I've been in community with people, that's what's been reflected back to me. And I think if we all can have that sort of guiding us as we go through this season to know where our energy needs to go, where our minds need to focus, I think we're going to come out with a bit more of a plan and a structure, and then hopefully the abundance that comes along with that.
We have gotten back into picking our movies and characters. And I was struggling a little bit picking this one, but then it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I don't know how many of our listeners watched White Lotus on HBO. Fabulous show. Second season, actress Aubrey Plaza. And she was also in Parks and Rec, so you might be familiar with her from there. But in White Lotus, she's with her husband on a beautiful trip that's being paid for by her husband's friend and quirky wife. And they're just an odd couple. And she's such a Virgo in this entire series because she's like the only normal one. She's looking at these situations and these dinners like, is no one else going to say how ridiculous this is? Like, no one's going to speak out against it. Nobody's going to say the thing and the elephant in the room. And so she's always got this sort of resting bitch face, like, are you kidding me? And I think she's the perfect embodiment, not only of poor Virgo in general, but particularly this Virgo season, because we've all kind of been surviving and been in that survival mode and putting up with things that we probably wouldn't have what feels like 20 years ago, but I'll say pre 2020, because we've just had to continue and to put one foot in front of the other. And we have an opportunity now with this 8/8 karmic year and to say, what am I releasing? Like, yes, I've spent the first half of the year letting go of what no longer works, but how am I bringing in what I actually do want? And I can't ask for what I do want if I don't know and I haven't gotten emotionally clear. So it might be a bathroom floor moment. And I think Aubrey has one. Harper is her name in the show. I think she finally does break down, like, am I losing it? But it's worth it at the end when things sort of come to light and are figured out in ways. But that was my pick for the month. How about you?
I love that energy for Virgo season. I actually went with a show. I went with The Mole because it is it's a hilarious show when you're on the outside of it, just like watching all of the interactions. But I've watched both seasons, and in each season, there's these activities that they have to do to figure something out. There is an endpoint, there is a lot on the line, and there's always one or two of them that are so serious about it, and they have a strategy, and they're like, my way is the way to do it. And they're like so sure that they have the only way. But then everyone's always suspicious. And it's like that play between the two where it's like the skepticism and then the sureness of like, my way is the right way. But at the end of the day, I think the Virgo energy that I like to see in it is that energy of strategizing as a team and how excited they get when like someone's feedback is the right piece that you need in order to do it, or like somebody has the range of knowledge to know what a certain reference means. And it's like taking all of that Mercury energy and putting it together in like a team. There's a lot of other signs for sure, a lot of other energies coming in, but just overall, the fact that they're kind of like working towards a goal and they have to come up with a strategy for every single activity just gives it that extra boost of Virgo energy.
I think nothing bothers a Virgo more than someone who comes in without a plan and zero experience and then nails it. And they're like, no, I do not accept these results. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
statistically impossible. And this is not my reality. I do not agree.
Yeah. Like when somebody comes in with no experience and they're so confident for no reason, that drives a Virgo insane.
What else is happening in your world? Anything exciting coming up you want to share?
Yeah, you know what? I do have my newsletter as per usual, as I was talking about. It's one of the things that I actually was questioning, like, do I need to put my energy into this anymore? Do people even read this? And then I had a few people reference my newsletter, and I was like, wow, I didn't even realize people were really reading this. And then with my recharge as well for September, I'm going to be incorporating the recharges into the Spirit School Collective. So if you've been thinking about either thing, it's a kind of way to try out both because normally my recharges are 35 Canadian, and it's 111 to join the Spirit School Collective. So it's kind of a great time if you want to try out both. But just in general, I'm really enjoying the energy of how the recharges are turning out and how I'm learning about new plants and the energies that are coming through them, as well as different crystals. And I can just feel the energy really strong, especially I think in the last few months. It's like Spirit's really been putting my energy a lot into that. I've had a few healing sessions for clients that have been really powerful. And just the ability to do kind of like a recharge, the same structure, but for one person and one session has been really cool. Being able to like pull in all of the different energies for each person and give them a PDF so they can open it anytime to reference the recharge and the newsletter. The newsletter will be out on the 27th, and then the recharge is September 5th. I opened up my calendar again. So I'm doing oracle card and intuitive readings, and I'm also doing healing sessions. And I do send either one of them remotely or live. And I really, really have been enjoying going deep with individuals as well as doing those group sessions.
I have to say, when I got your newsletter last month, it was phenomenal. I think I even messaged you or replied to it right away because, I think we get in the business aspect of like, I have to do the newsletter and it has to go out on the day and I got to put things in and we get very methodical. And it was, I think you maybe even felt bad because you sent it late, but there was so much emotion behind it, which I think is interesting because we spent this whole episode talking about it, but I felt like I connected to you in a deeper way. And it was really beautiful. So if you guys haven't subscribed, please, please, please subscribe to Andrea's newsletter because it's one of the few that hit my inbox that I read top to bottom. And it was really beautiful. I have my newsletter, of course, coming out here in just a couple weeks, always closer to the end of the month, with the free downloadable astrology calendar and the day-by-day play for the astrology. So be sure and sign up. It's totally free and an awesome little resource. I have been writing a lot more. So there's a blog now. I feel so old school. There's a blog on my website, which is also not completely newly designed, but in the last 6 months. And I've really enjoyed putting more articles, and I do an oracle or tarot card pull of the month. What's a way for you to pull the cards as well and see what's coming up. Some fun articles. I dive into some of the energies in just a little bit deeper way. So that's kind of where I've been playing lately. I have my books are open, not only for birth chart reading sessions, Akashic records. I've got a mini reading offering over there, some psychic opportunities. All the normal things are there, but yeah, having fun again, playing. And I think that's the important part of enjoying what's left of this Leo season before we jump into our emotional roller coaster of a fall.
I love that. I also am a huge fan of Emily's new newsletter. I have been for a long time too. I always immediately download the PDF to my phone and my computer because I reference it many times throughout the month. I'll be having a either really good day or a really random day and being like, what the hell is this? And I love that Emily uses like keywords for the theme. I really like being able to look like that's exactly how I feel. So, okay, it's not just me. That is the energy, but I love that you're doing more writing as well. I think that Mercury energy is really hitting both of us as earth signs in a really beautiful way. And I look forward to seeing more of that because have been reading more too. That's the thing. I've noticed myself slowing down and like reading more blogs, reading more articles. So I love that our energy is flowing in the same direction there.
We can thank that Jupiter and Gemini bringing in the words, bringing in the information. And I've even noticed I'm hanging out a lot on threads. I don't know if you're over there too. It's just so much fun. I'm having so much fun connecting with people again without having to be pictures and reels and algorithms and all things. Thankfully, it's still fresh enough platform. They haven't destroyed it with ads. But it, yeah, has brought up some nostalgia around connecting back into blogs and seeing what people are thinking and feeling in real time. So it's been fun.
I love it. Well, I'm hoping that that's the direction we're heading as a collective, especially like you said, with that Jupiter and Gemini. And I think we're all kind of starved for that. But I love that people are trying to hunker down back into the blogs and the more simplified versions of like expressing their emotions and expressing their experiences.
Love it. Well, thank you all for listening to another episode. I feel like we shared a lot of information, but hopefully it will resonate. And even if you have to listen to it a couple of times, you'll get the nuggets and pieces you need when you need to. So thank you all so much for continuing to listen. And we can't wait to see you in Libra season next month.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.